Hello, Happy New Year! So, with the new year, I thought I would reflect upon and share how much I spent on RV parks and campgrounds in 2022. I know budget and expenses can be a big topic with full-time RVers, and so I wanted to be a little more transparent about some of the things that I spend my money on. Obviously, the biggest expense that a lot of full-time RVers will have will be what they spend on campgrounds and RV parks. And so at the end of the video, I will share some tips on how to save money on your reservations. So, the grand total that I spent on reservations in 2022 is $9,091. For context, this is $757 per month and $26 per night. So all in all, not too bad. It's about in the range that I would want it to be. Monthly, my goal I think is to keep it between $600 and $800 per month. But obviously some months are more expensive, some months are cheaper. There was honestly a large range in how much I spent per month this year. Alright, so I'm going to break down these expenses into different categories based on the different parks that I stayed at. Starting with RV parks. In 2022, I stayed in RV parks for 272 nights. This brings my average to about $22 per night. One of the reasons that I spend so much time in RV parks as opposed to like public campgrounds is because I can find the best deals there. Many RV parks have monthly rates, weekly rates, or even seasonal rates that are going to be a lot cheaper than their daily rates. This is probably the biggest way that I like to save money on my reservations, because if you are relying on daily rates, even with like public campgrounds, they're going to add up really quickly. So this isn't really true for all RV parks, and I'll touch on that a little bit later, but most of the RV parks that I stay at are in that $600 to $800 range. How expensive they are will depend on amenities, location, demand, that kind of things. The next one is state park campgrounds, which I stayed at for a total of 75 nights for an average of $37 per night. So for state parks, you obviously can't do anything like monthly rates. A lot of them have limits on how long you can stay. I stayed at Arizona and Colorado state parks. I do think overall Colorado state parks are more expensive than Arizona state parks. Arizona state parks also seem to have a little bit more of a range than Colorado state parks. Somewhere like Homolovi State Park, which doesn't have as high a demand as Lost Dutchman State Park, is going to be cheaper. At the end of the day, these rates are going to be more expensive than a lot of the monthly rates that I had when you average them all out. But I wanted to travel a little bit more over the summer, and the best solution that I found was to stay at these state parks. All in all, I think the price was worth it. They're honestly really great experiences, and I enjoyed my stay at almost all of the state parks that I stayed at. Moving on to regional parks, so specifically Arizona regional parks, I only stayed for 4 nights. Specifically, the one that I stayed at was Usuri Mountain Regional Park, and the average per night was $34. This was my stay at the beginning of December when I stayed with my home-built teardrop camper while my Top 400 was in service. Not a lot to say. I think Arizona regional parks are pretty much on par with the state parks. In terms of like amenities and pricing, that kind of thing. And lastly, we have county parks, which is the first time I think I've ever stayed at a county park. I stayed at Gilbert Lake Campground in Pima County, and it came out to an average of $25 per night, which is a really good deal, even if it was electric only. It definitely had a little bit less amenities than like the regional or state parks, but a better price. It's a give and take, I think. It's definitely a good solution for if you need somewhere to stay for a couple nights and you don't want to stay in an expensive RV park. Alright, the next part of the breakdown is the most expensive and the cheapest place that I stayed at in 2022. So earlier I was talking about how monthly rates are often cheaper than daily rates, which is how I like to save money. But My most expensive campground was an RV park. I spent the month of June at Woody Mountain Campground in Flagstaff, Arizona, and the total came out to $1,545 for that month, which averages out to about $51. All in all, not my ideal RV park to stay at, but I really wanted to spend a month in Flagstaff during the summer. It was my college town. It's really a beautiful town in summer, and it's been a while since I've been there. And I couldn't resist. When I was planning on making the reservation, it was only $1,000 per month, which I think is a lot more reasonable, but they raised their rates between 2021 and 2022 $500, which I think is just absurd. I understand raising your rates for demand. I think it's a fairly reasonable practice among RV park. $500 is insane. That's an insane thing to do. That's an insane amount to raise your rates. I still made the reservations, so that's on me. But it definitely changed my perception of that campground. And also made it pretty much unlikely that I'll stay there again in the future. Moving on to the cheapest place that I stayed. This is Payson Campground, an RV resort in Payson, Arizona. And the average came out to something like $9 per night, which is really good. This does come with a little backstory. So I've stayed at this park before. They were very nice. I had made my reservation again with them this year, and when I got there, they had messed up my reservation and put me in a different site than I had requested, which happens. I think most RV parks don't guarantee you a site, so I would have been a little upset, but at the end of the day, I think it was within their right. But because they didn't put me in the site that I wanted, they gave me my first month free, which is very generous of them, and I very much appreciate it. That's some really good customer service. Even if I had paid for the month of October, the average per night would have come out to $16 or $17, which is still a really great deal and still the cheapest place I stayed. And finally, the last section, just a couple quick tips on saving money on reservations. The first is something I've talked about before in this video, but making extended stay reservations over using daily rates at RV parks. If you are a little hesitant to stay at places for a month, many places also offer prorated weekly rates. It won't be as good of a deal as the monthly rates, but it's a good option if you're someone who likes to move around a little bit more. If you do like to move around a little bit more, I think there are two ways to save money. The first is memberships, so like Good Sam, Passport America, that kind of thing, just to save you a little bit more money if you're staying at RV parks. Oftentimes, though, public campgrounds will be cheaper than RV parks. So state park, regional parks, county parks, that kind of thing, while they don't offer you monthly rates, they offer you decent daily rates as compared to a lot of RV parks. The next tip is to plan ahead. If you are doing things last minute and making last minute reservations, you will oftentimes find that the more expensive parks are the ones that have availability. So planning ahead will allow you to make reservations with the parks that have a better deal, or even to make those extended stay reservations as well. The next tip is to balance budget with travel, which is what I like to do. So if you find yourself traveling a lot, spending a lot of money, maybe plan a month where you stay somewhere a little bit cheaper. This will help you just kind of rest, relax, catch up on work, and will help balance your budget a little bit more so you're not spending too much over the length of a year, essentially. And lastly, if you're able to, boondocking will help you save money. Free campsites obviously are the best deal, but do require a little bit more money up front to make sure you have things like solar panels, generators, that kind of thing, so you are able to camp off-grid in these free camping spots. But yeah, that's what I spent in 2022 on my campgrounds, and just a little bit of a breakdown. If you have any questions about the places I stayed, let me know. And if you have any tips on saving money on reservations that I didn't cover, let me know as well.